Hi guys, today I'm going to be talking about OET exam, the Occupational English Test, which is required for the CARMS application. After you give the QE1 and the NAC exam, you're wondering, oh, what's the next step? I have to prepare myself for the CARMS application. And it's just like go, 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 go after that. So you should be prepared about what your plan is for the next steps. So some people, while they're preparing for the QE1 and they're doing really well in the QE1 prep, they start the OET prep at the same time. But for me, I like to, when it comes to exams, I don't like to multitask. I like to do one exam at a time just so I know I'm giving my 100% to one exam and then my 100% after that to the next exam. So for me, that's what I did. It's very important to make sure you know when the CARMS application is opening up because you will need the results for the QE1, the NAC, and the OET exam before you can apply for CARMS. I know there's something about the QE1. You can still apply if you don't have the QE1. And let's say you gave your exam in October, November, they wait for your results. So you can apply, and then once they get the results, they accept your application. But for OET, you need to have your results ready. So it's very important you see, okay, if I'm going to book the exam, let's say the timeline for CARMS application opens up in November. So make sure you have your results before November, okay? Because some people miss the deadlines and then they suffer because they're not able to apply to the first iteration, okay? So it's very important that you see, okay, if I'm giving QE1 in August, I have the whole month of September to prepare, or even 3 weeks of September. I give the exam and it takes 2 weeks for the results to come. So probably mid-October, I will have my results and I can focus on the other parts of the application while I'm waiting for the OET result. So it's very important to make sure you know your timeline, okay? Because you're the only person who has control over that, and you need to be preparing smartly for your CARMS application. So if this is your first time giving the OET exam, it's very important that you know what the structure is like. So like other English exams, OET has a listening part, a writing part, a reading part, and a speaking part. The listening part is usually 40 minutes long. So it's usually a conversation between a patient and a healthcare provider. And they have given you, like, they're talking and they've given you, like, the questions. They have given you parts of the conversation which is blanked out, and you have to fill in the blanks while listening to the conversation. So this is very important. You need to have good note taking skills, and you need to be able to write things down as they're speaking in the conversation and not wait to go back and think about what they talked about, okay? Because once you miss it the first time you hear it, you're not going to listen to the conversation again, and you're going to miss that whole fill in the blank part that they have said they have initially, okay? So it's very important to pay attention and listen actively and have good note taking skills. And the reading part is next, which is 60 minutes. You need to be good at skimming content and scanning and deep reading of clinical texts. So you need to be able to, let's say you have a whole paragraph and you need to, or a whole topic, and you need to skim through it. The best technique is to read the headlines of each paragraph. If there's no headlines, read the first and last sentence of each paragraph as you're skimming and scanning. And then when you're reading, try not to read every single detail because you're going to forget it. So try to read while scanning. So, read a few words, then read the next words and go quickly, like when you're reading a storybook, but you're reading really fast. Make sure you understand the concept behind the paragraph rather than rushing. If you feel like rushing is making you miss, then read it slowly, okay? Do whatever suits you at your English level, okay? So you need to have very good practice of reading. The reading paragraphs are usually very detailed and can be tedious and a bit, annoying, maybe boring even. So you need to have good reading skills. You need to know how to skim, and you need to know how to know what the topic is asking from me or what the paragraph's main point is. And how do we know what the paragraph's main point is? Usually if you read the first line and the last line, they give you an idea of what the paragraph is going to talk about, because a paragraph might have more details not relevant to what the question will be. You need to know how to identify what is the irrelevant stuff in this paragraph and what is the relevant stuff related to my questions. Another tip I would give is make sure before you read the whole topic, you're reading the questions that are going to come in the topic. So okay, this is the question they're going to ask me. I have to look and see where I'm going to find this in my topic and where I'm going to find this in the paragraphs, which paragraphs I'm going to find it. Usually, when they're asking you questions one after another, it usually starts from paragraph one. One question is from paragraph one, the next question might be from paragraph two. So they go in a descending order, okay? So it's kind of easy to follow, but sometimes it's not like that. But you still have to make sure you understand what the topic is talking about, okay? And whenever you're writing an answer, make sure you're not copying word for word from the paragraph and kind of changing the words up a bit so it doesn't look like you didn't really get it, but you're just answering the whole paragraph in that answer, okay? So reading, we need a lot of practice with skimming and scanning and being able to identify the summary of that paragraph, okay? Writing. Writing is a bit more of a difficult part. Usually when someone starts OET, that's usually the harder part that people are facing. So make sure you go onto YouTube and you see samples, or you go onto OET, the official website, and you see samples of writing a referral letter, writing a discharge note, writing a follow-up note, just so you know what kind of pattern they're following. So for writing, you need to make sure that you're following the exact pattern. So you're not like writing stuff, let's say you're not writing the side effects in the first paragraph. Like if they're talking about their disease and the family history and all the history, make sure you're following the pattern that they've given on the website, okay? Because you don't want to miss that out. Because we know how to write, technically. We know English, we know how to write, but we need to know what kind of pattern they want us to follow, right? That's the only way you're going to get a good score in that. So I briefly kind of summarized every single part, like the reading, the writing, and the listening. Speaking part is quite straightforward too. If you're a doctor and you've already and you're IMG and you've had some clinical practice in Canada, it's a very similar conversation between a doctor or a healthcare provider and a patient. So just make sure when you're practicing and you go on the OET official website, you have the speaking card and you know how, and you're following whatever is written on the speaking card and making sure you're not missing important parts out. Like if they're talking about a medication with the patient, make sure you're not missing out major side effects, okay? Like if you miss like an irrelevant side effect, like a minor side effect, that's fine, but make sure you're not missing anything important in that conversation. It can be a bit tricky because they give you the card and you can read it initially, but you don't keep looking back at the card, right? They take you can write notes about the card, but you can't keep looking at your notes while you're talking, right? So just make sure you've categorized it in your head and you're like, okay, well, this is what I'm going to have to talk about, this is what the patient said, so I'm going to talk about like this with the patient, okay? Even if you miss something, that's fine, as long as you're not missing important parts of that conversation. So the burning question, what is a good grade for OET for the CARMS pathway? So the answer is B and above. You need to be getting a B in each category. Every category is marked separately. So if you're thinking you're going to get a total score, no. You're going to get a total score, but everything is marked separately. So we need to make sure in each category you're getting a B. And while you're practicing, I'm going to advise you to try to get better than a B, because you never know on the exam day, is the exam harder than the practice test that you were doing. You never know what the differences may be. So aim for an A when you're practicing, and even if you're getting like a high B, that's fine. So make sure you're giving it time. Let's say after you give the QE1 and NAC, or like any other exam is going to be easier than this exam, so probably I only have to study like 2 days and I can give the exam. No, at least if you're not really that great, give it a month or so. I gave it a month just because I had the time and I wanted to kind of practice it daily, so I gave myself a month, and then I booked the exam 2 weeks in, like I said before. Make sure you're well prepared for the exam. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comment below. I'm open for a conversation with you. If you need some personal idea of me or where you want to email me to find me something, I can give that to you. Keep up the great work. We're gonna get there together, and when I hear success stories, it's gonna make me super happy. So IMGs, CMGs, whoever is applying for the CARMS application, you're gonna do great. Okay, see you later.